Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Windows on the World. Slightly late tonight, but that won't really bother anyone who's listening to the replay, as most people do. Very strange experience I had just before the show. I have several devices which I actually broadcast from. My favourite one of choice is actually a phone, because I get a really good sound out of it. I put it inside an acoustic cube and it sounds fantastic. Got to the phone, few minutes to go, and guess what? The app had disappeared. That's why I'm a little bit late. Quite shocking, actually. I often find this. When I'm trying to get on air, I often have real problems. Now, I'm not paranoid. I'm just a conspiracy theorist. But tonight, why COVID kills? Yes, I'm going to be asking some questions and probably giving you some answers too. Are you fed up with spineless non-thinkers? Then you are an extremist in your non-community. Did you know that extremists are using COVID to promote conspiracy theories? Have you ever heard of anything so sick? Yes, they are, and it's all for the common good. We know who's actually promoting the conspiracy theories about COVID. The agenda of the COVID action plan is the same as the global action plan, global to local. Tonight, why they say you have no rights. We're going to be looking into that. Inalienable rights have gone under the guise of community, not inalienable, as the Americans say, but inalienable, rights that cannot be leaned, rights that cannot be taken away, God-given rights, natural law, how that has been usurped through, amongst other things, the COVID action plan. Yes, COVID is merely an accelerator of global governance, a bit like climate change, but a lot quicker. Yes, the common good, the public interest. Our rights have gone, but they can be restored only if you know the system within which you are operating. Area lockdowns breed compliance. Mask wearers make themselves vulnerable to illness. All good for the population control and management system. We've had your contribution, now get lost. Your totalitarian, vibrant, diverse and resilient community, your smart city gulag is waiting for you. Your energy harvested existence is over when they say it is. Yes, this is what COVID is all about. The global health security system. Coming to you through biometrics, monitored by the Internet of Things, by corporate governance. The real reason for COVID is to bring the global community together. Oh, that's all right then, isn't it? That's fine. The global community. We're all in it together. No one will be left behind under one system. Yes, the UN Global Governance System. Is it a conspiracy theory? No, a 42-chapter document. But if you listen to what's been said at many of the conferences that I've covered over the years, you will know that we are living in a global village under a system called communitarianism. Well, it's actually extremism. Let's look first at how this is being applied. Something that made me, it really triggered me actually, made me angry. Ex-MI5 Muppet Mark Rowley and Sarah Khan, amongst other globalist parasites who write documents and make up scaremongering for their wages, are part of the Commission for Countering Extremism. Have you heard of it? Well, you should have done, if you're one of those extremists who's been looking at conspiracy theories on the internet. But what does the Commission for Countering Extremism actually do? The Commission for Countering Extremism supports society, that's all right then, to fight all forms of extremism. It advises the government on new policies to deal with extremism, including the need for any new powers. Things like the online harms paper, hate speak, all this stuff is what they deal with. And how do they deal with it? Well, they don't deal with it because it's not there. The hate isn't there. They have to create it. They create it through papers that they put out. These are filthy parasites with their noses in the trough. These are disgusting subversives who are actually communitarians. The Commission for Countering Extremism flagship report is called Challenging Hateful Extremism. identified and evidenced, it says here, a new category of extremist activity in our country. And they describe this as behaviours that can incite and amplify hate, or engage in persistent hatred, or equivocate about and make the moral case for violence, that draw on hateful, hostile or supremacist beliefs directed at an out-group who are perceived as a threat to the well-being, survival or success of an in-group. Well, I think that would be the globalists would be the hateful, hostile, supremacist group, and the anti-globalists would be the victims. That's us. We're the anti-globalists. But as you may have noticed through the protests recently, the anti-globalists have been steered into the agendas of the globalists. Yes, those protests. Do you know what's happened? They've been taken over by the communitarians. Yes, we have within those protests people peddling lies, people who are agents of the state, people who work for property acquisition corporations, who are in part of Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, yes, the smart city gulags, the social cleansing. Yes, we reported on that last week. There's at least one useful idiot who works for corporations who's telling you all to take your masks off. Oh, well, you've got to control both sides, haven't you? It says, since the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic, the Commission for Countering Extremism has heard increasing reports of extremists exploiting the crisis to sow division and undermine the social fabric of our country. Who would do such a thing? If you know of anyone who would do such a thing, please email me at info@windowsontheworld.net. I want to find out who these extremists really are. It says here, we have heard reports of British far-right activists and neo-Nazi groups promoting anti-minority narratives by encouraging users to deliberately infect groups, including Jewish communities, and of Islamists promoting anti-democratic and anti-Western narratives. Wait a minute, I can see a bit of a problem here, can you? Are you getting any clues as to who and which lobby groups might be involved in writing this disgusting, subversive crap? Have a think about it. Claiming that COVID-19 is divine punishment from Allah on the West for their alleged degeneracy. Have you ever heard anyone saying that? I've never heard anyone saying that, have you? Have you ever heard of any of these memes being recreated in your local community by hate-filled extremists? I don't think I have, actually, and that's the problem. It doesn't exist, so they have to create it. Have you ever met anyone who came up with anything this stupid? Well, they did. Those who pose as victims may have something to hide. They are criminals posing as community leaders. Which lobbyists, which ones, wrote this vile piece of propaganda and all the rest of it which comes out of this organisation? This organisation, the Commission for Countering Extremism, who challenge hateful extremism. Well, there can't be anything wrong with that, can there? Well, there can if there isn't any there. And they're actually using this to silence the global citizen. It says here they are not specific to any one ideology, but are used by the far right, far left and Islamists. Now, this is funny, isn't it? So what do you get when you get the far right and the far left? Well, you get a new system, because the far right is lie 1 and the far left is lie 2. And you know what overarches that? The system of communitarianism, global governance, the big society which came in 2010. And it's been pushing ever since to get to where it is now. What we have is a globalist narrative implemented at a local level by useful idiots and disgusting subversives like the ones who wrote these reports. It says the scale of extremist content online is vast. Do you mean that the counterintelligence community are not able to keep up with the facts being put out? Oh, that is a shame, isn't it? This says deplatforming far-right actors has pushed many onto fringe platforms such as Telegram, VK and Gab, which means basically platforms like YouTube just ripping people's accounts from under them. Okay, so we've got quite a lot of these sort of organisations, including, of course, the Institute for Strategic Dialogue, who produce a lot of these papers which never criticise international Zionism. They never criticise the far-right government in Israel. But they do invent groups which do not exist, which the fake far left say is the fake far right. There's another one called the Integrity Initiative. Have a look at them. We've covered all this stuff before on our shows. That's the Institute of Statecraft, who once they had their door knocked upon by Chris Williamson, the MP, fled and have actually pulled their own website down. And guess who's done it, according to them? You'll never guess. I bet you will. It's the Russians. Well, the big society was announced in 2010. It was never going to end well, and it hasn't. COVID-19 makes you a change agent too. Why are you being so selfish, though? Stay in. Stay safe. Are you shielding? Degenerate your health. Do your bit for society. Put your mask on. The results are plain to see. Smart gulags. Smart gulags are waiting. The COVID action plan is now driving the goals of sustainability. Oh, that's all right then, isn't it? Nothing wrong with being sustainable, is there? The technocrats call it communitarianism. This is the communitarian agenda. What is communitarianism? Have a look in our archive. Have a look for Lark in Texas. Lark in Texas on communitarianism. If you Google communitarianism, you will get some university papers. My website, Lark in Texas, possibly Nikki Rapana, and outersite.org. And I know all of these people, but the main curator of this thing called communitarianism is a man called Amitai Etzioni. Well, he changed his name. I think his name was Werner Falk originally. It means friend of Zion. Okay, let's have a look at communitarianism, because this is so key to what's going on now. I can't tell you how key it is. In Stanford's Encyclopedia of Philosophy, it says, modern-day communitarianism began in Anglo-American academia in the form of a critical reaction to John Rawls' landmark book, A Theory of Justice. Ooh, that's a bit dodgy, isn't it? A Theory of Justice. I think you've either got justice or you haven't. You can't have a theory about it. Drawing primarily upon the insights of Aristotle and Hegel and modern philosophers, the term communitarian actually originated in the 19th century and was defined as a member of a community formed to put into practice communistic or socialistic theories. Webster's dictionary changed the definition in 1909 to mean of, pertaining to, or characteristic of a community. That's your community, the big global community. No one will be left behind. Today, Amitai Etzioni calls this the responsive community and recognised that communitarian ideas can be found throughout history, although the term itself was coined only in 1841 by John Goodwin Barnby, who founded the Universal Communitarian Association and the London Communist Propaganda Society in 1841. In the same year, Barnby founded the Communist Chronicle, a monthly newspaper later published by Thomas Frost. By 1843, the Barnbys had recast their movement as a church. The term communism was used slightly later, but certainly by the 1840s. It is a system where individual rights are sacrificed for the common good. This is implemented by group consensus. The public appear to have agreed. Does this sound familiar? Does this sound like what's being imposed on you by all these agents of change that seem to have been brainwashed into this new system? Well, that's what it is. The idea is to control all public opinion and enforce a totalitarian system which presents itself as public engagement and as being led by the community. I've been reporting on this since at least 2010. When I saw these agents of change arrived, they had been mentored into the goals of United Nations Sustainable Development, which is a communitarian system, which basically means that everything that you have, own, or think will be restricted. That's in effect what it means. It says here, this community can be a self-defined pressure group. This is my notes, by the way. This is all the stuff that I've observed over the years. The community are in fact trained in the principles of the system and aim to control the public narrative, which they do quite successfully unless we usurp them, unless we use their language. We must use their language against them. We can be vibrant, diverse, and resilient. We can be the change that we want them to see. The memes of the communitarian system. But non-government organisations and public-facing organisations control the narrative and train their future leaders into this intolerant system, which dovetails into the climate change agenda and the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Well, we've done many shows on this. Check out the archive at windowsontheworld.net. The Communitarian Network, Communitarian Explained. Let's see what they have to say. It's a coalition of individuals and organisations who come together to shore up the moral, social and political environment. Well, according to them, according to what their morals are, according to what their political environment is. Might not be the same as yours because you might be an extremist. You might be outside the accepted corridor of communitarian opinion. It says we are a non-sectarian, non-partisan, transnational association, transnational, global. The Communitarian Network investigates issues and policies such as the balance between rights and responsibilities in society, community justice, which is basically mob rule, multiculturalism, the community's moral voice. Well, who decides who is the community's moral voice? Well, the communitarians do. They are developing global society. Yes, we are all in it together. This is from Columbia University, Washington, D.C. And Amitai Etzioni is active within this establishment. Rights and responsibilities. This is the communitarian agenda. Men, women and children are members of many communities, families, neighbourhoods, innumerable social, religious, ethnic, workplace and professional associations and the body politic itself. But guess what? They all come under one hive mind and you're not allowed to think outside it. That's the genius of this system. It cannot be defined as left or right. It is a synthesis of left and right, of capitalism and communism. It is run by corporations and corporate thinkers and technocrats. But it's for the common good. Well, there are too many people on Spaceship Earth, aren't there? Are you saying that there aren't too many people? Are you saying we're not overpopulated? Why are you so full of hate? I'm going to have to write a paper about you and give it to Sarah Khan and Mark Rowley. And they'll include you in their description of hate. And who is to be hated? We will all adhere to the communitarian system because we are all in it together. It says here, neither human existence nor individual liberty can be sustained for long outside the interdependent and overlapping communities to which all of us belong. Interdependence. This is the big globalist agenda. Interdependence basically means borderless countries, borderless minds, the wilderness of the mind, the fourth world wilderness, the borderless Pangaea, with no races, no thoughts, no political agendas, but a ruling oligarchy at the top, a corporate governance structure, a top-down totalitarian governance structure. No one will be left behind. All individual rights are void in favour of the rights of the community. It says, nor can any community long survive unless its members dedicate some of their attention, energy and resources to shared projects. You have rights and responsibilities. You do not have any rights unless there is a responsibility attached. Therefore, individualism, individual thought is not allowed in the new hive mind of communitarian rule. Have you noticed this? Have you noticed how everyone is being absorbed into this? And of course, it goes into the biometric health, the security system, the global health security system. These are the projects of local action plans, the community engagement projects, the sustainable development plans, which give you rights with responsibilities. You will comply. You will be made to comply by external pressure from change agents and, of course, the public, who are now part of the new global hive mind. Why is the government trying to tell your neighbours to shop you if you go out when you're not meant to, or if you have more than six people round your house, or whatever the rules are this week? Because this has nothing to do with the virus. The COVID agenda is a genocide, but it has nothing to do with COVID-19 or a coronavirus. It is only a virus of the mind. There is an illness out there. There are always illnesses out there. But the main illness is the illness of the mind, which they are imposing. The exclusive pursuit of private interest erodes the network of social environments. Do you see why they're destroying self-employment? The exclusive pursuit of private interest erodes the network of social environments, according to the communitarians. That's why you're not allowed to be self-employed. Why you're not allowed to have a car, because that's full of hate. That's far right. It says the social environments on which we all depend and is destructive to our shared experiment in democratic self-government. How deceptive is that? I wasn't aware that I did depend on them, actually. But the totalitarian system masquerades as community. For these reasons, it says, we hold that the rights of individuals cannot long be preserved without a communitarian perspective. You will have no thoughts of your own. You will only have groupthink. You are only allowed to think inside the box. That's what this is all about. It means individual rights will not exist, which means, in effect, there is no law. Under this system of communitarian law, it is about the common good. Therefore, if you are outside the prescribed narrative of the vibrant community, of what the totalitarians, the technocrats, want you to think and believe, which is basically that anything outside of what they're imposing is far right or hate-filled, then you will not get justice. You will not see anything like that in a court, because you are assumed to be guilty, because you are against the public interest. It says here, a communitarian perspective recognises both individual human dignity and the social dimension of human existence. Can you see this? You cannot be separated from the hive mind. It means being forced into surveilled smart cities, biometric vaccines in the name of the global community. It says a communitarian perspective recognises that the preservation of individual liberty depends on the active maintenance of a communitarian perspective, which recognises that communities and polities, it says here, have obligations. So everyone, every kind of organisation have obligations, including the duty to be responsive to their members, which basically means consensus. It means that you have to agree with them. If you don't agree with them, you're marginalised, you're full of hate, you're not part of the group, you're not a communitarian. You're going to be left behind. I want to be left behind, but they won't let me be left behind. The steering of all public opinion by change agents. It says we are united, however, in our conviction that a communitarian perspective must be brought to bear on the great moral, legal and social issues at the time, which of course are decided by corporate governance. The law system is made to respond to the public interest. That means no system of law It says respect and uphold society's moral order as you would have society respect and uphold your autonomy to live a full life. It's all very subversive. It's almost doublespeak. It's definitely cognitive dissonance, and it's full of logical fallacy. Diversity programming, the undermining of all outside the goals of the Global Action Plan. In other words, you do as the new system says. It says late 20th century liberal democracies have often had the opposite problem, stressing rights to the neglect of responsibilities. Why should your rights come with responsibilities? Inalienable rights are yours from birth. Why are there responsibilities attached to that? Your God-given rights are your rights. When you were born free. You were not born into communitarianism. You were born with a birth certificate which gave you to the state, but your spiritual and temporal being has nothing to do with this system. So why are they trying to get you into it? Why do they want you to be part of the hive mind? Because these people are control freaks. If you look at the documentation, if you look at where this is going, this is a control and management system for everything on the planet. You will be given a certain amount of time. Your energy will be harvested and you will be put down when necessary. And that will be sooner rather than later if you do not embrace the big society. It says here, in speaking to today's authoritarian societies around the world, communitarians demand a greater acknowledgement by governments of the rights and dignity of the individual, but within the parameters, of course, of the imposed agenda, which puts your rights secondary to the agenda. It says in speaking to the modern democracies, and especially our own society, communitarians call for a greater recognition by citizens of their obligations to society and to one another. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't think I have obligations to people. I have a duty of responsibility for my actions, but that's not factored in here. The duty of responsibility for your own actions is decided by the group and not yourself. Therefore, there is no moral compass here. There is implementation of rules and an agenda, but your own moral compass is deemed to be faulty in this system. Well, I'm sorry, but mine isn't, because I've spent a long time working on it. But this is a big problem now because, I don't know whether you've noticed it, people are becoming very disingenuous, aren't they? Guess why? Because of this system. Because this system encourages them to live a lie. It encourages them to live as part of a hive mind. In other words, to tell lies to get where you want to go is not a bad thing if it's within the parameters of this new big society. And the new big society is built on a lie. Therefore, it has no integrity. There's no integrity built into this system. Therefore, there is no inner integrity. Therefore, it is a corrupt system which relies on and will rely on technocracy and artificial intelligence. However, there's no such thing as artificial intelligence. There are overwhelming systems or systems which they are imposing which aren't fully functional. If you go to any of these websites like biometricupdate.com, there are many corporations vying for this, for the biometric systems, for the face scanners, the biometric vaccines. It's all there, but it's not cohesive. These people aren't very well organised. COVID-19 has been rushed. That's why the rules keep changing every week. It's called future shock. They need to keep you in shock because behind the scenes, it's a bit of a mess. Okay, let's move on now to something which I was building up to. This, again, is from this group who are actually telling you what extremism actually is. Okay, this is a paper that they've just put out. How extremists are using COVID-19 to promote disinformation, misinformation and conspiracy theories. It's a brief note for schools. and further education providers. So if you're a parent, you might want to know about this. This briefing note is aimed at senior leaders, of course, the change agents, teachers, and safeguarding leads. These are the people who put together this kind of document. These are the people who believe that anything outside their narrow, inhibited, retarded viewpoint is far right. These people are retards of the highest order. They're of the highest order, of course, because they get paid handsomely for lying. It says this provides a short summary of the extremist response to COVID-19, highlighting the additional radicalisation risks for children and young people, and suggested actions for settings to take. During the pandemic, local authorities have seen a significant decline in Prevent referrals. Prevent, of course, is this strategy which has been rolled out to counter extremism. If you are deemed to be vulnerable to extremism, you will be called out before your local council and a few local coppers, and you'll have to explain yourself. Then you'll have to go on a little course, and you'll have to be re-educated to be a good communitarian. Yes, local authorities have seen a significant decline in Prevent referrals, probably because it's the most unpopular programme ever invented. It says it's raising concerns about the welfare of vulnerable children and young people. Well, this is how you get into their minds to stop them being radicalised into critical thinking. As schools return, it's important that settings are extra vigilant to radicalisation concerns, particularly as children and young people may have been exposed to disinformation, misinformation, and guess what? Conspiracy theories, sometimes called fake news, due to extremists exploiting COVID-19 to spread hateful narratives and increase division. Well, I think there's a bit of pot calling the kettle here, isn't there? Is anyone out there aware of any organisations that are spreading hateful narratives and increasing division? I think they call it the Behavioural Insights team, don't they? And SAGE, and MI5, and pretty much all of these government steering bodies and NGOs who are linked into this new communitarian system. OK, how we define disinformation? Oh, tell us. I can't wait to hear this. Misinformation and conspiracy theories. Come on, let's see what they say. Disinformation, let's see what they say, what disinformation is. Fake or misleading stories created and shared deliberately. You know when you share something, do you share it deliberately? I generally share things deliberately. You know, there's no accident here, is there really, when you share something? Because you generally share something deliberately. It says often by a writer who might have a financial or political motive. Well, that's everybody in the mainstream media and government then, isn't it? So they're all spreading disinformation. Well, why aren't they full of hate? Why can't we call them far-right extremists? Why can't we call them far-left extremists? Misinformation. Let's see what it says about that. This also means fake or misleading stories. But in this case, the stories may not have been deliberately created or shared with the intention to mislead. So in other words, you're poor informed people. Of course the government was right. You've been looking into those conspiracy theories again. It wasn't your fault. The communitarian big society won't accept your conspiracy theories, and you'll go on the Prevent strategy and everything's going to be fine. Don't worry. You've spread a bit of hate, but I think the community can stand it at this level, at the level of misinformation. We can correct that. Conspiracy theories. Let's see what they say about these. Conspiracy theories offer a simplifying model for all that cannot be explained or easily understood. Well, actually, that's really not what they are, is it? They offer a simplifying model for all that cannot be explained or easily understood. Well, that's actually the opposite, because if you look at the official stories to things that have been known to be lied about, then it's the mainstream that offer a simplifying model for all that cannot be explained or easily understood. So everything here is reversal. They typically involve an alternative explanation for an event. You mean there aren't alternative explanations for anything? Well, that's strange, isn't it? Because what if you get it wrong? Does that mean that there's no alternative explanation? They typically involve an alternative explanation for an event or situation to those provided by governments and official international. Oh, I see. So anything that doesn't come through the intelligence services and the government has to be a conspiracy theory. I see now. I didn't realise that's where they were going with it. Of course, suggesting a group, individual or organisation is responsible or hiding information from the public. Well, I think that many organisations hide information from the public, don't they? In fact, it's in their public remit to do so because they call it data protection a lot of the time, don't they? What are the radicalisation risks related to the impact of COVID-19? Would you like to know? I'll tell you. Exposed to misleading and hateful content. Have you been exposed to misleading and hateful content? Well, if you have, get rid of your TV. And if you're paying a TV licence, stop doing it. It says young people may have been exposed to fake stories or conspiracy theories about COVID-19, which attribute blame on minority groups. Well, I'm going to attribute some blame to a minority group. I'm going to say all of those attending Davos this year are up to their necks in it. They're a minority group. But wait a minute. The World Economic Forum is a minority group. Bill and Melinda Gates are a minority group, aren't they? So, I'm getting a bit confused here, aren't you? I mean, I think we should be blaming minority groups. I think we should be blaming these people. All of those people who are making the Global Action Plan a reality. Klaus Schwab, the World Bank, the IMF, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, all of the people involved in this, I think they're pretty hateful. I think they're full of hate. Young people may have become exposed to or engaged with extremist organisations or individuals, especially online. Now, this is hilarious because they keep trying to frame it as though there's some kind of threat of the far right. So you get these ludicrous organisations like Hope Not Hate, which is MI5 for retards, and compromised criminals who are spouting hate, literally spouting hate. I say compromised criminals because I think what these people are doing is criminal. I'm not a communitarian, you see, so that is a minority view. And they would say that I'm giving a platform to hate. But I don't think so. It says increased vulnerability to radicalisation. COVID-19 may have increased vulnerability to radicalisation as children and young people may feel isolated, anxious, frustrated and angry. Well, that's probably because they're locked in their houses, they can't see their friends, and they're having to wear a mask. That would make you anxious, frustrated and angry, wouldn't it? So that is the COVID. Actually, see, COVID is full of hate, isn't it, really? I think they should get rid of COVID. If they got rid of COVID, they'd get rid of all the hate overnight. It says this could increase the resonance of intolerant messaging, an appeal of extremist groups or individuals offering explanations for the crisis. Well, if you want an explanation for the crisis, go to the strategic intelligence part of the World Economic Forum website, because they're surfing the wave of COVID-19. This is the corporate side of the implementation of global governance through COVID-19. COVID-19 is an accelerant of the Global Action Plan. It's a lot quicker than climate change. It says here, what are the extremists' themes? What are they? What are the extremist themes during the pandemic? False and misleading narratives about the virus have been spread, particularly online, to force change or to place blame on out-groups. What's an out-group? I mean, I don't feel like I'm part of this big society, so is that me? Are they blaming me for it? Is that what they're saying? This can further incite hatred, justify violence. It can divide communities, you know. Whilst some of this occurs on popular social media platforms, it can also be found on lesser, well-moderated platforms. These sites can include easily available, extreme and conspiratorial content. The Commission for Countering Extremism, the useful idiots, particularly this Sarah Khan, who writes this garbage for a good living. These people get paid handsomely, you know. have highlighted the following prominent extremist narratives. Guess what's in at number one? You'll never guess what's in at number one for school kids. Anti-Semitism. Several conspiracies blame the Jewish community for spreading the virus. And now, I don't know about you, but I've never heard anybody saying that it's only Jewish people that have coronavirus. I mean, you'd have to be a complete retard to think that, wouldn't you? But that's not what it's about, is it? There's a particular lobbying group here, and that particular lobbying group is behind Hope Not Hate and behind many narratives, because that particular lobbying group doesn't like anyone being able to put out any facts at all. And that's called the intelligence services, also known as the British. Have a think about that. Oh, so some people are including claims that COVID-19 is a Jewish plot, either as a hoax or a deliberate creation to remove civil liberties and impose totalitarian rule. Well, it is to remove civil liberties and impose totalitarian rule. There's no doubt about that. Guess what's number two? Anti-Muslim hatred. Claims that British Muslims have flouted social distancing rules and spread the virus have been promoted, particularly on social media. See, what they do is they find a few people who say a few irresponsible things, and then they magnify that, a bit like the PCR test. They magnify it until it actually becomes a case. So the cases of this happening have been magnified rather a lot, I think, to go along with their narrative to shut everybody down if they say anything. High-profile extreme right-wing influencers have blamed Muslims for the spread of the virus. Well, the people who have done that, you could probably count on one hand, I would think. I mean, that's pathetic. Anti-Chinese hatred. Hate crime and hate incidents towards Chinese people have risen. Reports have found a 300% increase in the use of hashtags that encourage or incite violence against China and Chinese people online. But if it's a 300% increase, how much was it before, you see? They don't say that. They don't say it's a 300% increase from what? From less than nothing? Yes, possibly. Islamist extremists have used COVID-19 to support existing narratives to promote the need for a caliphate over democratic... What planet are these people on? Claiming the pandemic is a divine punishment for the West's sinful behaviours. No, the pandemic is a divine punishment for our own bloody stupidity, for not seeing through the criminals that have done it, that are using it for their own ends. That is the divine punishment that we are under, because our inalienable rights have been taken away. Therefore, they've taken away our divine right to anything. Well, my divine right is telling me that there's a bunch of criminals behind this, and they're meeting in Davos in January. That's what my divine right... Is that hate-filled? It probably is, isn't it? Accelerationism. Extreme right-wing individuals have promoted the idea that society is inevitably collapsing, and that right-wing terrorism can accelerate its end through inciting social conflict, violence, and ultimately a race war. Now, have you ever heard anyone saying this? I never heard anybody saying anything like that. Wider conspiracy theories. Oh, let's see what the widest conspiracy theory community is saying. Extremist individuals have exploited a number of prevalent, non-extremist conspiracy theories related to 5G, track and trace, and anti-vax. Wait a minute, let's take this apart. 5G needs looking into, there's no doubt about that. And some people have been doing it, and it is the Internet of Things, and it is part of the big problem, the big society, and the global health security system, and there's nothing good about that. There's a lot of bad about it, but not much good. Track and trace. Well, that is an absolute disgrace, and what they're doing is making people give away their ID before they go into pubs and all the rest of it. This is a disgusting thing they're doing. So that's not a conspiracy theory, that's a fact. And what they're doing with the track and trace system and the new track and trace system is disgraceful. Trying to shame people into downloading an app so that you're the outlier. If you don't have it, you're hateful and you're spreading the virus. Well, that's a lie, and I don't like it. It says it can be detrimental to public health messaging. In some cases, these have been linked to, here we go, anti-Semitic again, or other hateful narratives. I mean, I wonder who's writing this. Which lobbying group are actually writing this? Although left-wing anarchist and single-issue extremism is low, a minority... Wait a minute, left-wing. Are we talking about Black Lives Matter? Are we talking about anything supported by Soros? Are we talking about Extinction Rebellion? Oh, that's not extremist, though, is it? Even though Extinction Rebellion said that it was inevitable that Western democracies were going to implode and they were going to rise from the wreckage. That's not extreme, though, is it? The collapse of what they call Western democracy, that's not extremism to say that, is it? To want that to happen, to implement that to happen at all? No, it's not extremism, that. They've actually left that one out. It says here, a minority of individuals have supported the targeting of 5G masts. This was based on the perception that masts allowed the government to control people. Wait a minute. I think they've missed something here, haven't they? Do they know what the Internet of Things is for? Are their highly inactive and minuscule brains immune to the facts of what the Internet of Things, the global health security system, is for? The perception that masts have allowed the government to control people. Well, what else are they there for? I mean, they can't have it both ways, can't they? You can't have track and trace and then say that these masts aren't there to control people through the phones. Because if we go and have a look at this new, well, not so new actually, it's the cryptocurrency system using body activity data. And it's from patentscope.wipo.int. Okay. Summary. Some exemplary embodiments of the present disclosure may use human body activity associated with a task provided to a user as a solution to mining challenges in cryptocurrency systems. For example, a brainwave or body heat emitted from the user. Yeah, a brainwave or your body heat, when you perform the task, provided by an information or your service provider, which is your phone, which is what they're talking about, is a conspiracy theory, such as viewing advertisement or using certain internet services can be used in the mining process. What this is basically about is this cryptocurrency system, which goes through your phone and basically does everything that they're saying is a conspiracy theory. It's available to look at. It's the cryptocurrency system using body activity data. And you can see how it works at patentscope.wipo.int. And this patent number is W0202. Sorry, let's do that again because it's WO 202006 0606. It's the famous 666 that we're talking about. They've been using that a lot lately, haven't they? That orange-faced liar, Dr. Hillary, has been using it quite a bit, hasn't he? If you want to have a look at his business activities, you can have a look at an article we did. TV Dr. Hillary Fails, I think it's called. All about his failure to tell the truth. Yes, let's get back to this anyway, because what they're saying here is that reviewing the prevent risk assessment and considering the impact of COVID-19 and the information in this briefing, they're looking at local changes in risk or community tensions, and they want you in the schools to ensure staff are familiar with the issues raised in this briefing to increase their confidence in recognising concerns. So your teachers in your local school and higher education have been given this document by this organisation, which is basically calling out anybody who questions anything an extremist. That is unacceptable. This is not acceptable. And we should not be taking this because this is the communitarian network. This is the global governance agenda. This is exactly what we are talking about when we talk about the COVID action plan. The COVID action plan to steer you into the intended outcome, which is the big new society. Yes, I'm going around and doing some talks at the moment, and I've redesigned my talk to take in the new COVID action plan and the new technocracy, the new system, the global health security system. So, Please join me on Tuesday and Thursday, republicbroadcasting.org, 8 p.m. You can find the archive at windowsontheworld.net. And I'll be covering more on this because we have to see how this system actually works, and nobody is really talking about it. There's only a handful of people who are actually talking about how this works, and I don't think there's anyone in the UK doing it. They all seem obsessed with trivia in a way, and the bigger picture's really important. So, yeah, just have a quick look into chat. I'm still hoping that the well-cultivated public apathy works against them. Well, that's a bit negative, isn't it? Yes, we've got some gossip in there. And somebody says that 5G is being used to spread anti-Semitism. Well, we'll have to ban 5G then. Ban 5G. 5G is being used to promote and spread anti-Semitism and anti-Islamic hatred. So stop 5G now. Okay, that's it for tonight. Thanks for tuning in. Had a real job getting on air tonight. I can't believe it. This happens to me nearly all the time. I get everything planned out and I just relax. And then there's like this terrible event that happens just as I'm going on air. I'm sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. Well, I bet it does actually. It's all part of going live. But that's it for tonight. Thanks for listening. And I'll be back on Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. I'm going to do some live streams as well. And there's a great interview I did with Duck the System on YouTube. Duck the System. Have a look at that. That's Susie, who booked us for a talk down in the southwest a while ago. Before COVID. It was pre-COVID and post-coronavirus. That's it for tonight. Thanks a lot for listening. Join me, Mark Windows, for Windows on the World Live every Sunday 9 to 11 p.m. GMT. Check out our archive and programme stream at windowsontheworld.net.